They sent their champion with the confidence of an empire that had never known defeat. The Thryn High Dominion, cold, efficient, and merciless, believed entirely in the myth of their own superiority. Across 100 conquered systems, their banners hung like iron declarations of inevitability. Their soldiers were engineered, their fleets perfected, their champions revered as living weapons. And at the apex of this hierarchy stood Kael Vor, the Dominion's most celebrated warrior scholar, a creature whose intellect was as lethal as his strength. For centuries he had broken civilizations not through brute force alone, but through flawless precision and flawless understanding. When he stepped onto a battlefield, the outcome was not an uncertainty, it was a countdown. So when faint human signals reached the borders of Thryn space, strange, flickering pulses of energy unlike any standardized galactic transmission, the Dominion reacted with predictable arrogance. Primitive, the Council declared, unrefined, a threat only if we allow them to become one. The logical response was simple. Send Kael Vor, allow him to evaluate the species personally, and authorize total neutralization if necessary. After all, a rising species could become troublesome centuries down the line, and the Thryn preferred to solve problems long before they grew teeth. Kael Vor accepted the mission without ceremony. To him, this was routine, another examination, another demonstration of imperial efficiency. His flagship, the Voraxis, parted the dark like a crimson blade, its engines releasing a deep subspace tremor that rippled across the void. Inside his command chamber, Kael Vor studied the incoming data on humanity. Their technology was crude by Dominion standards: fission engines, orbital habitats, modular research stations. Nothing noteworthy. Nothing threatening. Yet buried beneath the static were readings that defied immediate explanation: anomalous gravitational pulses, micro-singularity emissions, energy signatures that flickered between known categories like unstable hybrids. They were small, localized, inconsistent, yet undeniably real. Kael Vor dismissed the data at first. Young civilizations always stumbled upon unpredictable phenomena. They lacked discipline, lacked refinement, lacked understanding. But as the Voraxis entered the Sol system, his confidence began to crack. Earth looked quiet, unassuming, scarred by past wars, but technologically active. Orbiting it was a web of stations and satellites, yet one structure stood out immediately: Sigma-9. Sigma-9 did not broadcast. Sigma-9 did not respond to hails. Sigma-9 simply existed, humming, glowing faintly, surrounded by an electromagnetic halo that pulsed like a heartbeat. Dominion sensors couldn't decode its architecture. They couldn't map its architecture. They couldn't even determine what was powering it. Kael Vor had seen civilizations fake strength. He had seen species bluff with illusions and false signals. But this station didn't bluff. It refused to be understood. He descended. Earth's atmosphere wrapped around his lander in streaks of fire as it carved toward the desolate plateau where Sigma-9 stood. The station was huge, far larger than appeared from orbit. Its surface was patterned with branching conduits that glowed softly, as if circulating something living rather than mechanical. There were no guards, no soldiers, no battalions waiting to resist him. There was only one human. She stood calmly at the station's entrance, hands folded behind her back, a figure in gray engineering fatigues. No armor, no weapon, no fear. Her name, he would later learn, was Elara Asher, but at that moment she was simply a paradox. Kael Vor approached, towering over her. "Engineer," he announced, his voice amplified by his suit's resonators. "You stand before Kael Vor, champion of the Thryn Dominion. You will explain the purpose of this structure." Ilara didn't flinch. She didn't stumble. She didn't react at all to the presence of a being who had made empires kneel. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, as if evaluating him the same way he was evaluating her. "Well," she said, "that depends. Do you want the short version, the complicated version, or the version that won't make you faint?" Kael Vor stiffened. No one spoke to him that way. He followed her inside. Sigma 9 was a cathedral of controlled chaos. Energy arced through transparent conduits like captured lightning. Holographic readouts shifted so rapidly that alien eyes struggled to track them. Machines hummed in synchronized patterns, forming a symphony of engineered precision unlike anything Kael Vor had ever encountered. The deeper they walked, the more the champion felt something he had not felt in centuries: disorientation. The station wasn't reacting to their presence. It was reacting to her. Ilara touched a control surface, and the entire chamber reconfigured, walls shifting like fluid metal. "Sigma 9 is an environmental stabilizer," she began. "It taps ambient cosmic energy, restructures it, and uses it to prevent catastrophic events: solar flares, gravity spikes, subspace fractures. Think of it as a planetary seatbelt." Kael Vor processed her explanation and immediately realized it was incomplete. Humans always simplified when speaking to outsiders, but this wasn't simplification. This was deliberate omission. He sensed hidden systems beneath the visible ones, felt the gravitational anomalies beneath the floor. There were layers here, layers upon layers that she wasn't telling him about. "You designed this?" he asked. "I built it," she corrected. "Designing it was the easy part." It was then, precisely then, that Kael Vor understood the danger. Not of the station, not of the technology, but of her. He had come expecting a champion of flesh and strength. Instead, he had met a champion of mind and imagination, a human engineer whose reach extended beyond conventional science, beyond traditional warfare, beyond the predictable boundaries of alien understanding. For the first time in centuries, Kael Vor felt a tremor of uncertainty run down his towering frame. The Dominion had not sent him to crush a primitive species. They had sent him to confront a force they were incapable of recognizing. A force named humanity. Kael Vor had interrogated kings, scholars, warlords, and prophets. He had shattered the confidence of species whose civilizations predated the Thryn by millennia. He prided himself on reading the truth behind eyes, behind posture, behind every inflection of voice. Yet as he followed Ilara Asher deeper into Sigma 9, he realized he could read nothing at all. Her movements were relaxed, yet purposeful, casual, yet impossibly assured, like someone who had been waiting for this moment, not with dread, but with curiosity. The hum of the station intensified the further they walked. The walls were not walls. They were layered composites of exotic alloys, nanite filaments, and a translucent material that pulsed with faint starlight. Conduits twisted like branching roots, carrying energy that did not behave like energy should. It wasn't raw power. It wasn't stored charge. It was responsive. Like the station itself was aware of their presence, shifting its flow to maintain equilibrium. Kael Vor's armor began auto-adjusting its internal shielding. Sigma 9 was throwing off readings that defied baseline physics. Gravity here was slightly variable, bending in microscopic oscillations that shouldn't have existed outside controlled singularity labs. And yet, the human walked through it like it was her home, her footsteps perfectly balanced, her expression calm. At last, they entered what appeared to be the central chamber, A colossal sphere whose inner surface was lined with thousands of crystalline nodes, each pulsing with an internal glow. A web of light connected them, flickering in patterns so complex even Kyle-Vor's neural implants couldn't track them in real time. He felt something inside him tighten. This was not primitive. This was not early-stage civilization tech. This was something else, something dangerous. What is the true purpose of this installation? Kyle-Vor demanded, his voice sharper than he intended. Ilara stopped walking. She placed her hands on the railing, staring down into the core of Sigma-9, an enormous spherical construct suspended by magnetic fields, rotating slowly, humming like a contained star. "Tell me, Kyle-Vor," she said softly, "how much do you know about gravitational phase memory?" The champion blinked. Memory encoded in gravity waves, an abandoned concept in most of the galaxy, dismissed as mathematically elegant but structurally impossible. The energy requirements alone would rival the output of a star. No known species had ever made such theories practical. "No culture has achieved that," he replied. "Not even your humans." Ilara smiled without humor. "Are you sure?" The station responded to her words. The core flared, just slightly, and the crystalline nodes brightened in synchronized ripples. Suddenly, the web of light coalesced into patterns. Even Kyle-Vor recognized them. They were waveforms, pulses, signal strings, memories. The memories of Earth. Not as stored digital archives, not as compressed databanks, but as gravitational echoes recorded on the fabric of space-time itself. Kyle-Vor approached slowly, his instincts warring between awe and calculation. "You encoded human history into gravitational resonance fields? That would require—" "A planetary scale generator," Ilara finished. "Yes, exactly." Kyle-Vor turned sharply. "But humanity doesn't possess." "They didn't," she interrupted. "They built Sigma-9 for a different purpose originally. But when our colony fleets started disappearing, when entire outposts were wiped clean, when the Dominion and others began expanding into the outer reach, humanity adapted." She looked at him then, directly, and Kyle-Vor felt a strange sensation crawl across his consciousness, something he couldn't name. Humans were an emotional species, chaotic and unpredictable, but Ilara's eyes held no fear or anger, only determination. "Sigma-9 became our contingency plan," she said. "Our guarantee that humanity would never truly vanish. Not in data, not in ruins, not in myth." Kyle-Vor tried to speak, but she lifted a finger. "And that's just the backup." The chamber dimmed. The core shifted. The entire station vibrated with a frequency so low it was felt rather than heard. "You came here thinking you were evaluating a threat," she continued, "but you're evaluating a pivot point. Humans don't build weapons the way your Dominion does. We build tools. Tools that become weapons only when someone pushes us." Kyle-Vor's claws tightened on the railing. "Are you implying humanity seeks confrontation with the Dominion?" "I'm implying," Ilara said, "that humanity prepares for whatever the universe throws at them, and the universe throws a lot." Her voice grew quiet. "Do you know why the colony fleets vanished?" Kyle-Vor hesitated. Dominion intelligence had suggested pirates, anomalies, perhaps precursor weapons left behind by extinct species, but nothing conclusive. Ilara whispered, "It wasn't pirates." The core flickered, projecting horrible images. Twisted spacecraft, torn habitats, strange biological residues. Kael'vor saw shapes he couldn't categorize, wounds in metal that looked grown rather than cut, scars that pulsed with residual energy. "They came from dark space," Ilara said. "Creatures that live in quantum shadows. They devour energy. They erase matter. They hollowed out our colonies like fruit left in the sun." Kael'vor's mind raced. The Dominion had theories of such entities, but no confirmed encounters. "And you built this to fight them?" he asked. "To survive them," she corrected, "and maybe someday to understand them." Kael'vor stared at the pulsing lattice of light, at the gravitational memory core humming with the voices of billions of humans, countless stories preserved in space-time. "Why show me all this?" he asked. Ilara met his gaze again. "Because your Dominion thinks humanity is irrelevant, weak, primitive." She stepped closer, her voice lowering. "But you're wrong. And I want you to understand the difference between being harmless and being patient." A chill ran down Kael'vor's spine. Sigma-9 wasn't a station. It was a warning. It was a seed. It was a statement carved into the fabric of the universe. Humanity adapts. Humanity endures. Humanity builds. And when pushed, humanity becomes something else entirely. Kael'vor had thought he'd already grasped the scale of the danger, but Segment 3 of Sigma-9 shattered that illusion. The chamber Ilara led him into was deeper than the central core, and for the first time since arriving, the champion felt something he had never felt in his decades of service. The sense of standing somewhere he was not meant to stand. Not as an intruder, not as an enemy, but as someone who simply wasn't built for what he was about to witness. The door sealed behind them with a whisper, and the lights dimmed until only a faint amber glow lined the floor. The air here felt heavier, saturated with energy that made Kael'vor's instincts recoil. If the upper levels of Sigma-9 were a display of mastery, this place was a vault, a sanctum, a heart. A long walkway extended into a circular chamber. The ceiling was domed and black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Along the walls hung constructs, machines, but not like any Kael'vor knew. They were half-grown, half-manufactured, with organic curves and crystalline veins irradiating faint silver-blue light. They breathed, almost imperceptibly, their filaments expanding and contracting like lungs drawing in cosmic dust. Ilara walked among them with the ease of someone strolling through a familiar garden. "What are these things?" Kael'vor asked, unable to pull his gaze away from a construct that reassembled itself while he watched. Nanite strands wove new patterns over its surface. The shape shifted slightly, as though dreaming. "They're called phase anchors," Ilara replied. "Early prototypes." "Prototypes for what?" "For answering the question humanity used to fear asking." She stopped at the railing and rested her hands on it. "What happens when we disappear?" Kael'vor narrowed his eyes. "Is this still about your dark space creatures?" "Partly." She nodded toward the domed ceiling. "But mostly, this is about preparing for the day they're not the only threat." Kael'vor followed her gaze and froze. The ceiling wasn't a ceiling. It was a viewing layer, and behind its surface, something moved. Something enormous. Something alive. It wasn't a creature in the biological sense. Kael'vor's training would have recognized that. No flesh, no bone, no cells. Instead, it was a lattice of shifting geometric forms, luminous polygons drifting through one another like reconfiguring constellations. It was elegant, terrifying. It hummed with a resonance that tingled across Kael'vor's teeth and armor plates.
"What is that?" His voice was quieter than he intended.
"We don't know its name," Ilara said. "Humanity didn't build it. We found it."
"Where?"
"In the ruins beneath Europa's ice crust. Buried deeper than anything should have been." She folded her arms. "It was dormant for thousands of years, maybe millions."
Kael'vor stared harder. The construct entity drifted like a thought given shape, fractal wings unfolding and collapsing in a cascade of shimmering vectors. It looked asleep, yet aware, passive, yet observant. In the Dominion, anything older than recorded history was classified as precursor artifact tier Omega, and the rule for such artifacts was simple. If you find one, you never, ever activate it.
Yet here humanity was, studying one in the basement of a secret station.
Ilara noticed his expression. "Relax, it's harmless, mostly."
"Mostly?" Kael'vor repeated sharply. She shrugged. "Well, it once tried to reshape one of our labs into a Klein bottle for reasons we still don't understand. That cost us 3 researchers and a whole physics wing, so we moved it down here." Kael'vor's claws flexed against the railing. "And you keep it here, alive?" "That's where the phase anchors come in." She gestured at the breathing constructs along the walls. "They keep its geometry stable. Think of them as gravitational seatbelts." Kael'vor struggled for words. "You speak about impossible technologies as if they are routine," he said slowly. "They're not," she replied, "but they're necessary. Humanity learned something after our colonies vanished."
The hum of the chamber grew deeper, vibrating in Kael'vor's bones.
"We learned the universe keeps secrets," Ilara continued, "and those secrets don't care about whether your species is ready for them. They don't wait for you to evolve. They don't negotiate. They don't warn you."
Her voice softened.
"So we decided we wouldn't rely on anyone else's rules anymore."
Kael'vor's eyes drifted to one phase anchor pulsing an amber glow. Its change in rhythm matched the geometric creature above, like the two were synchronized. Not enslaved, not controlled, paired, mutually stabilizing.
"Your Dominion believes humans are dangerous," Ilara said, "but they're wrong." Kael'vor turned toward her. "What are you then?"
She smiled faintly.
"Prepared." The ceiling entity shifted as if reacting to her words. One fractal wing extended downward, brushing the inner surface of the dark dome. Sparks of cascading symbols trailed behind, glyphs of unknown logic that momentarily illuminated the chamber.
Kael'vor recognized the feeling creeping up his spine.
Awe, fear, respect. "You bonded with a precursor artifact," he whispered. "And you built machines to keep it stable, machines that rewrite local physics." Ilara nodded. "To survive what's coming, we needed more than weapons. We needed understanding. So humanity reached into the dark, found what was sleeping there, and made sure it woke up on our side."
Kael'vor felt a chill settle into his bones. Dominion Command had miscalculated.
Humans weren't reckless. They weren't overconfident.
They were building something,
Preparing for something.
becoming something.
And the champion suddenly understood why he had been sent alone.
The Dominion feared humanity.
But not nearly enough. The alarms began as a distant pulse, a soft thud-thud rhythm echoing through the metal bones of Sigma-9, long before words formed on the station-wide comms. Kael'vor's ears twitched.
Ilara's head snapped toward the corridor as though she recognized the pattern instantly, and the lights along the floor shifted from a calm amber to a deep, blood-like red. The chamber containing the slumbering geometric entity dimmed, its lattice of fractal wings folding inward in what looked startlingly like anticipation. Ilara inhaled sharply. "They're early." "Who?" Kael'vor demanded. She didn't answer. She was already moving, boots hammering against the walkway as she sprinted toward the exit. The station shook. A deep rumble rolled through the decking, followed by a metallic groan that reminded Kael'vor of a leviathan dragging its claws across a starship hull. He followed her at full stride. When the door slid open, a swirl of tactical holo displays awaited them, projected into the command center like ghostly constellations. Sigma-9's operators moved with frantic discipline, their hands skimming mid-air controls, their voices clipped and low. But Kael'vor didn't need Ilara to explain. He saw them on the holographic display, Dominion warforms. And not just any strike force. These were the sovereign pattern dread shapes, biomechanical constructs reserved for extinction-level operations. Massive, vicious, designed to crush entire colonies under gravitational shear and corrosive atmosphere dispersal. Kael'vor's throat tightened. "I did not call them," he said stiffly. Ilara glanced at him only briefly. "I never said you did." The hologram flickered as new signatures appeared. Tens, then dozens. Some were smaller hunter craft, but among them were the unmistakable silhouettes of obliterator wedges. Angular, blade-like ships that cut through space with distortion drives forbidden by every non-Dominion treaty. Sigma-9 should not have survived 5 minutes against that. "Why are they here?" Kael'vor whispered. Ilara tapped a command panel. "Because the Dominion assumed you'd fail. They assumed you'd die. You were never meant to return with information." Kael'vor didn't flinch from the accusation. It was true. A champion was expendable, despite the honored title. But he expected his death to come from humans, not from his own empire erasing evidence. Ilara studied the swarm of incoming signatures, and her voice lowered. "They don't want to understand humanity anymore. They want to erase what they can't control." Kael'vor stepped closer to the display. The dread shapes were aligning into a spear-tip formation. Classic Dominion protocol. It meant a single thing: annihilation sweep. "Sigma-9," boomed a distorted voice over the comm. The Dominion commander on the lead ship. Cold, formal, absolute. "Your station is off record, operating without council sanction. You are harboring precursor contamination. You will stand down and surrender all assets for sterilization." Kael'vor exhaled. "They have declared you compromised." Ilara's eyes hardened. "Then it's time to show them how compromised we truly are." She issued the next order calmly, almost softly. "Wake the anchors." A breathless second passed. Then the entire station vibrated, not from the dread shapes, but from something deeper, something older. The lights flickered. The phase anchors pulsed in synchronized rhythm, breathing faster, brighter, awakening their crystalline veins until they looked like rows of small artificial suns. The geometric entity in the vault stirred. Kael'vor felt the movement like a shift in gravity. "You're activating it?" he hissed. "Are you insane? It almost obliterated your own lab." "Then it's about to get some practice," Ilara replied. She swept her arm across a control arc, and the command center windows polarized, revealing the starfield outside, bright with approaching Dominion metal. The first dread shape opened fire. A sphere of green-black compression energy roared toward Sigma-9, distorting the very emptiness around it. Kale Vor braced instinctively, knowing even with his champion physiology he would vaporize in an instant if that weapon struck. But it never reached the station. The space between Sigma-9 and the blast folded, literally folded like a sheet of cloth pinched by invisible fingers, and the attack vanished into a sliver of impossible geometry. The geometric entity had awakened. A cascade of symbols danced across the reinforced dome of the viewing layer, like luminous snowflakes made of equations. Each symbol that appeared resonated through the station, vibrating in Kale Vor's bones. The Dominion dread shape fired again, but every shot either bent, dissolved, or disappeared into places space wasn't meant to go. Ilara whispered, "It's stabilizing its boundaries. Good, that means it's listening." She placed her palm on a control node. "Let's give it a target." The phase anchors thrummed, and a beam of pure structured light shot from Sigma-9 toward the nearest Dominion vessel. Not an attack, but a link, a mathematical handshake. The geometric entity understood. Its fractal wings unfolded, extending through the projection dome as if reaching into reality itself. Then everything changed. Space rippled, cracked and unfurled like a curtain pulled aside. The Dominion dread shape screamed, not audibly but through its hull sensors, as its armor began to rewrite itself, atoms slipping between dimensions, spiraling into patterns the ship's designers had never conceived. Its engines collapsed inward, forming an impossible Mobius knot. Its gravitational core inverted, creating a bubble of negative time flow. One dread shape became a sculpture. Beautiful. Dead. The remaining Dominion fleet hesitated, a thing Kyle Vor had never seen them do. What have you unleashed?" he whispered. Ilara answered without looking at him. "Not unleashed," she said. "Partnered." She turned to him. "You wanted to know why the Dominion fears humanity. Why they declared you dangerous the moment they realized you build instead of bow." Her eyes glinted in the red emergency light. "Because we stopped being afraid of the dark first." The arena lights dimmed to a low hum, a twilight glow settling over the battered sands where champions were meant to rise, fall, or be broken beyond recognition. But the place didn't feel victorious, nor triumphant, nor even awed. It felt stunned, quiet in a way that vibrated louder than any roar. 80,000 alien spectators sat frozen in their seats, their bioluminescent eyes flickering like faulty lanterns as they tried to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Down in the center, surrounded by a circle of scorched earth and smoking shrapnel, Morgan Reyes, human engineer, civilian by every definition, stood hunched over a device the size of a briefcase, sweat streaking down his dirt-smeared face. His chest heaved, his knuckles were raw, and the so-called champion of the Threx Dominion, a 9-foot titan bred for war, lay unconscious at his feet. What the arena didn't understand, what the galaxy didn't grasp, was that Morgan never wanted any of this. He hadn't come here to fight. He hadn't come to prove anything. He had simply been abducted, dragged to a foreign world, and forced into a contest meant to amuse a species that didn't value life unless it was exceptional. But humans, despite their messy history, had built entire civilizations on the backs of people like Morgan, problem solvers, tinkerers, stubborn fixers, who could turn disaster into possibility with nothing but pressure, fear, and the right scrap at the right moment. The champion had thundered into the arena armed with centuries of battle instinct. Morgan had sprinted into the same arena with a half-built magnetic pulse device, improvised from their own security systems. Because while the champion fought with muscle and legacy, Morgan fought with the raw, chaotic creativity of a species that had survived by refusing to die in the expected way. And the aliens had watched that pulse detonate. They had watched their unstoppable warrior collapse like a felled pillar. And they had watched Morgan refuse to kill him, even when the kill strike was legally required. That act, mercy in the face of an empire that had none, did more damage than any device. High Chancellor Echor, perched atop his gilded observation tier, finally rose. His crested skull bristled in agitation, and his voice echoed across the stadium like metal grinding against stone. "Human, step forward." The crowd parted around Morgan as if afraid his very presence could trigger another impossible outcome. He approached the center platform, still carrying the humming, cooling device under one arm. Echor stared down, pupil slits narrowing. "Explain yourself." "You refused the finishing blow." Morgan wiped his brow with the back of his hand. He wasn't a threat anymore. That's it. No creature refuses a victory kill. Morgan shrugged. Humans do. We don't kill for entertainment. And we don't kill someone who's beaten. The stadium erupted, not with cheers, but with uneasy murmurs, chittering protests, disbelief rippling through thousands of throats. Echor leaned closer, talons gripping the railing. "You confuse weakness with honor." Morgan shook his head. "No, you confuse brutality with strength." Those words carried farther than he expected. Something shifted in the arena, something small at first, barely perceptible. A few Threks in the front rows seemed conflicted. Others looked angered. Some looked terrified, and not of him, but of what his victory implied, that their feared champion could be undone by a tool built from their own infrastructure, wielded by a being half his size who insisted on sparing his life afterward. Echor raised a claw. "Human, you have humiliated us." Morgan exhaled through his teeth. "I didn't come here to humiliate anyone. I came here because I was taken." "And now you will remain," Echor announced. "Your mind will be studied, your inventions dissected, your creativity harvested. No species capable of this," he gestured toward the unconscious champion, "can be allowed to act freely." Morgan didn't flinch, but the air seemed to pulse around him. He slowly set the device down, not as a gesture of surrender, but as a silent warning. "Don't do this." "You have no say," Echor hissed. "Humanity has no say." Morgan looked up at him, exhaustion fading beneath a sharpening edge of clarity. "Then you really didn't study us at all." Before the elite guards could advance, the champion, barely conscious, stirred. His booming voice, weak but unmistakably resolute, rolled across the sands. "Release him." The entire arena snapped into stillness. The champion pushed himself upright, trembling with the effort. "He defeated me. Show him the honor owed." Echor recoiled. "You dare?" "He spared my life," the champion growled. "I will not allow you to take his." This was not rebellion. It was something deeper, respect where none had ever existed before. Tradition clashed with truth in the eyes of the watching crowd. Ekor's face twisted. "Guards, restrain them both!" Morgan sighed. "Yeah, that's what I thought." And then he pressed the device's final switch. The pulse that followed wasn't destructive. It wasn't even violent. It shut down every non-organic system within 200 meters, a perfect sphere of flickering silence. Lights died, weapons powered down, security fields dissolved. The arena's technological authority crumbled like sand in the tide.
Morgan turned to the champion. "You still good to walk?"
The massive alien nodded once, as though acknowledging not just a rescuer, but an equal. Together they stepped toward the exit tunnel, unarmed, unguarded, unstoppable in the confusion. Behind them, the galaxy's greatest spectacle lay in ruins, not from force, but from the brilliance of a single human engineer who never wanted to fight in the first place. And as Morgan disappeared into the shadows of the corridor, the whispers began. They spread like wildfire, like prophecy, like warning. The champion was defeated by a builder. The human fought with invention. The human refused to kill. The human could not be controlled. By the time Morgan reached daylight, the Threx Dominion had already begun rewriting its understanding of humanity. They had sent their greatest warrior.